Hello, everyone. Welcome, one and all, to this event. We're super happy to welcome you all in this live webinar, presentation webinar, where we will be sharing the work of our amazing decarbonization team, product team, and engineering teams who have worked really hard to create a guide or resource, a practical handbook for professionals in the space of software and IT to decarbonize their emissions. So welcome everyone. We will give a couple of minutes for the audience to start streaming in. Welcome Nick, Cesar, and Prerna. It's a pleasure to have you here online with us.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. It's also my pleasure to be here.
I'm really glad that we're finally presenting this amazing work that we have done, that you have worked on, and that we have all done together. It's really the coming together of a lot of work. So thank you so much for being here to present it. We hope that we will be able to provide multiple findings along the stages of carbon accounting, carbon management, and decarbonization for all of these wonderful business that we're having. For those that are currently joining us, feel free to use the chat to let us know where you're coming in from, to let us know what you're looking for out of this, what you're hoping to get from this webinar. What would you like to learn about so that we can also use this live? You can also use that space to ask your questions. There will be some space for a Q&A at the end of the presentations. However, we will have some interactions during this meeting. So I would like to invite everyone to join the conversation on this tool called Slido. It's free. There's no subscription. Don't worry about it. You can either go on slide.do and enter the ID number that you see here, or simply scan this QR code. While we continue to wait for a couple more people to come in, I would love to ask you first questions for those that are joining the Slido. You can already answer. The question is live, and my question is, what would you like to get from this session? Do you need some actions? Do you need to build a business case for sustainability? Get started, get your team to start on green IT. What is it that really you would like to extract from an actionable standpoint? And you can do that on Slido, and we'll be happy to share some of those results. So we'll just wait one more minute. If I can ask all of the participants that are live here with us to be sure to mute. We are on Riverside, which is an amazing tool that allows for a lot of people to share their ID. Here we will, we will be presenting and we will have this conversation through this tool. So just one more minute and I will get to the introduction. All right, I think we are all ready to go. We already have a really nice group joining. Oops, sorry. So I would love to begin because it is already four everywhere in Germany. Thank you again, everyone, for joining Plan A to this webinar. We are introducing today the largest and biggest resource that we have created so far. This resource is a professional manual that is directed to the professionals of that field in order to really decarbonize from a tangible perspective their activities and their companies. Sometimes you might be a software and IT professional in a company that is not a software and IT company. Sometimes you might be a professional within a software and IT company that is not working specifically in the information technology space. This webinar is for both, and we want really you to participate. So use the chat, use the Slido. You will get more QR codes to join if you're coming in. And let's have a great conversation on software and IT decarbonization. what is today's agenda? Very quickly, we will first touch upon the context and how to manage carbon emissions from software and IT companies and professionals. So giving you a perspective of what is this evolving landscape that we want to cover. And Nick Dale, my colleague, Chief Product and Tech Officer, will take over the stage to give you a real life use case of a software company actually doing carbon accounting on our platform. We will then move on to the paper's findings, key findings. I will give the stage to the authors, Cesar Vaca and Prerna Kataria, who have been, the working minds behind this paper. We will share the paper at the end of the webinar in your inbox, so stay aware for this. This is, as I said, a really large resource, really designed to be a handbook for you as you get on to your decarbonization journey. And then we will, of course, discuss the key levers for doing this reduction and move on to the Q&A. So maybe I will just give the stage 2 minutes for each of our speakers to introduce themselves. Maybe starting with you, Nick Dale, please, can you give us a few words about yourself?
Thanks, Nathan. Yeah, I'll keep it short. My name is Nick. I'm overseeing all the product and technology teams at Plan A, and super excited to kind of deep dive on the decarbonization in IT, sustainability in IT topic. Over to you, Cesar.
Thank you, Nick, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm also very happy to have an opportunity to share these insights with you. As you know, my name is Cesar Vaca, working as the decarbonization lead here at Plan A as part of the sustainability solutions team. Yeah, that's enough from me, I would say. And yeah, let's move on to Prerna. Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Prerna, and thank you, Nathan, for kicking off the webinar with so much energy. And I assist the decarbonization team with research work, particularly for the identification of industry specific emission reduction actions and assessment of suitability of these actions, and for the literature review work. Excited to be here.
Thank you so much. If I can just ask Morten to mute, please. Sorry about this. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you again to our speakers for taking some time to really share the behind the scenes of our work here, which is important. So I want to give you a very quick overview on the state of play, the environments within which we are operating when it comes to carbon management for software and IT. And the point that I want to make to you, I have been the sustainability manager of Plan A, which is a tech company, as you know. And I have identified for myself the need for a sustainability co-pilot. Taking on this responsibility, carbon management and ESG reporting, you very quickly realize, even looking at job descriptions, or as you see the tasks pile up on your Trello, on your Jira, that there's lots of jobs to be done. I listed a lot of bullet points here, and you can see they break down in 3 big categories. The first one being measuring, so data collection, emissions factor, activity data gathering, looking at your gap analysis, understanding if your data is safe and sound, is it audit proof, is it ready to be verified by a third party, and can it go public? This is a big chapter of the work, and also a very stressful one, especially for people who don't necessarily have a data management background. The second part of the jobs to be done is really about reporting. This is a lot of communication. You have to export the data formats, you have to design PDF, you now have to use other tools such as Figma, Google Docs, and many others to make sure that you are communicating both internally and externally to your relevant stakeholders. And different stakeholders need different stories, they need different format, and they go on different channels. So that leaves the sustainability teams with a lot of reporting work and a lot of actions to be done in the almost marketing department, or what would be understood as a marketing department responsibility. So that's also pretty technical for someone who's not formally trained, who hasn't had the opportunity to really do some content creation in their career. The third chapter, and maybe the one that we want to discuss the most today, is the decarbonization. However, this chapter does not happen without the first two. You need a good measure and you need a good reporting framework in order to really access, if you will, the level of decarbonization. And here the job is very technical. That's why we have specialists and experts such as Cesar and Prerna who are able to guide myself, but also our clients towards a logical, ambitious, and attainable decarbonization strategy. This is not something that you come up with like this. This is not something that you invent. This is something that you need to really work on. So you become quite overwhelmed quite rapidly with all these works. And on top of that, when you have to report about IT carbon, software carbon emissions, the landscape is evolving very quickly. And this is just a very small snippet of what you can see in the paper, which is full of data, full of graphs that allow you to really realize the magnitude of the evolutions of the changes in that space. And this is just one example that I'm sure you've heard about, which is the electricity demand from data centers and AI data centers and data centers that that serve for cryptocurrencies between 2022 and expected for 26. And you can see that the jump is monumental, and you have some new types of data centers that are appearing. There is many more ways to show you this, but I thought this was really clear. So you are very often an army of one, sometimes two or three to do the sustainability reporting. You have a very tall order, very diverse order as well to achieve. You have deadlines, of course, internal and external, and you are evolving on moving grounds. So that makes decarbonization in IT and software a particular animal and a particularly hard to grasp set of concepts. So with this in mind, I'd love for you to come back to Slido and to tell me a little bit more who has here had the following, who has had, sorry, the following experiences in the team. Did you have to do some extensive convincing to secure buying from management? Did you have to prioritize reporting over action because lack of time, lack of speed? Did you have to spend more time data cleaning than actually engaging the team, or did you have to renounce a reporting framework? These are very common issues that that can happen. I think I lost my screen. I apologize for that. Here we go. Now we go. Sorry about that. So I can see that there's a few people that spend more time data cleaning than engaging the team. I'm not the only one who has to do extensive convincing to secure buy-in from the management, all of the stakeholders from Plan A. I've had to really suffer from these, let's call them the four cavaliers of, decarbonization apocalypse, if I can allow myself this image. And we have, been in a lot of different conversations with our clients that describe this problem very quickly. So that is the basis that we are building our product on. The Plan A platform, the Plan A Carbon Manager, which is our key product, allows the sustainability teams to really automate, facilitate, and take some of that work off of their shoulder. And that is why the platform is, an end-to-end platform. That is also why it is digital, and that is why we're having so much. That's why we're putting so much effort in the upskilling part of our work, because it's not just about having a tool. It's also about learning to use it, learning to understand what is material for your company and what is important for your business. So, with no further ado, I would like to leave the stage to Nick for a live use case for a company and a software company. So Nick, if I can ask you kindly to start sharing your screen. I believe you have a bit of an intro before we jump in the product. But thank you so much. And over to you to really show to our audience what is the real life sustainability journey for a software and IT company.
Thanks, Nathan. And don't worry, I promise we'll keep it short because we want to focus mainly on the content of the paper and a bit of a deeper dive with some of our experts. But what I wanted to do just before we get into that is explain a little bit about what Plan A is. And we'll do that through a quick demo, just going through these stages of what is a typical sustainability journey for many of our customers. Naturally, you'll start with collecting your data and uploading them onto the platform. Then you'll have the option to review analytics and reports. And finally, there's a suite of tools to help you model and track your decarbonization initiatives. In addition to having a robust software, we also offer and can offer support from a dedicated customer success manager. And this role has a lot of types of support that is given to you, from the very beginning, onboarding, up to regular check-ins and improvements and data quality reporting, etc. Additionally, we also have services including migration support for historical data, as well as a few other things. Yeah, with that, just wanted to jump just quickly into the Plan A product itself and talk a little bit about that, how it helps IT managers track, measure their emissions, report on their emissions, but most importantly, get past all that very quickly in order to get into the decarbonization planning phase. So here we have our company emissions dashboard, and just really quickly, we can get an overview of our company emissions and break that down by scope, but it can also go into breaking that down by different entities, different locations of my company. And here we can maybe analyze and see that Munich is a really high contributor. We can break that down even further, just filter down just to the Munich office. Now we have all the data only for the Munich office, and break that down a bit further to see what the different categories of emissions are for the Munich office. We see what are the bigger contributors to emissions of the Munich office, and then even do a deeper dive on the specific category, so purchase goods and services in this case, and look at just the purchase goods and services and the contributors to purchase goods and services emissions over time for just the Munich office, but of course, all offices. And that can be defined when you set up your company structure and however you think about your company, whether that's legal entities, geographic entities, you can represent that in our platform as well. That you might be kind of wondering how we get the data into the system. That's obviously can be a very onerous task if you're working with a consultant and spreadsheets and kind of emails back and forth. With our platform, we try to get all the information into one place and create an overview of that information and where you're at with your data collection process. So you can see a brief overview of the emissions that you've collected over the course of your data collection process, and also break that down by the different entities as well and see where you still have gaps in your data. For uploading the data, we have quite a few different methods that you can utilize for the actual emission calculations. So our philosophy is that we want to make sure that you are able to calculate your emissions with whatever data that you have available. So a very common approach is to start with something that's maybe a bit less accurate, but is based on the information that you have at hand. Very common is the spend-based approach. So you can utilize your utilize your data from procurement and banking systems and add that directly into the system. You can see here we support many different ways of uploading data, also can upload data via API. And we also have an intelligent mapping tool that handles some of the maybe onerous task of mapping different categories and columns and things of this nature. So you can see that if I upload a CSV file, that will take a moment to upload the data. It will suggest then the column mapping and also the values of the columns. So if you have, for instance, common process for spend categories, often systems have their own different spend categories, and matching those to ones that can be used for emission calculations can be a really onerous task. This tool does that automatically in a few seconds, which is really helpful. Then again, just keeping it quick, we have, as I showed already, the ability to kind of analyze those emissions once they're into the system. You can also export the data once it's filtered. And in addition to that, can create rich exports as well. So whether it's CSV file, Excels as well, you can also create CCF reports. So we can create a rich PDF report from your data on the platform that gives you a really easy, rich text way to share your emissions information with stakeholders or throughout the company. It gives you a really detailed breakdown of your emissions. This is really generated all in a few seconds once you have the data into the platform itself. Then finally, we have our suite of emissions tools. So once the data is in the system, we have a recommendation engine for next best actions that are prioritized based on the reduction potential, analyzing the emissions in your system. We'll talk a little bit more about reduction actions specifically for IT services later in the webinar. But these can be a way to track those decarbonization initiatives on the platform itself, as well as set targets, including science-based targets, absolute targets, or intensity-based targets as well. And then through the combination of reviewing what target you have for your business and what actions you have activated in your system, you'll get a forecast of whether you are on track to meet your target based on the decarbonization initiatives that you have planned, or whether you need to plan more or readjust your target expectations. So that's a really quick run through of the Plan A platform. And I'll just come back and mention also that we're continuing to expand the methodologies on the platform on a continuous basis and investing more specifically on the IT services. So adding new methods for tracking cloud infrastructure as a service, as well as IT hardware. Those are coming very soon onto the platform in the upcoming months. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Nathan, and we'll get back into the deep dive on some of the specifics around IT decarbonization.
I think you're muted, Nathan, or at least I cannot hear you.
Apologies. Thank you so much, Nick. And as I was saying, it is quite important to really consider the sustainability journey as indeed a journey, which involves, as Nick presented, a collection of information part, a communication part, and then really the decarbonization in action part. So thank you so much, Nick, for showing how this looks real life. This is a production account that we've shown you, and as also Nick explained, the product is enriching itself on a weekly basis. We ship on a weekly, bi-weekly basis new methodology and new features that allow you to really, go deeper and go deeper and go deeper in the way that you can decarbonize and the way that you can capture this decarbonization in your data. Thank you so much for this. I would love to ask our audience another question. What are your main challenges to really implementing this decarbonization? How are you being blocked, in other words, in your company? What are the biggest blockers that you are experiencing? And I'd be happy to see a little bit some of the answers. This is one of our biggest questions, when we work with our clients. Where is the blocker? What is the problem? The business case, the ROI of sustainability is made. And I invite all of you, by the way, to explore our academy and our online courses and our other white papers to really pick up the arguments that you need to make your case, to your board, to make your case to your management, but also to your teams in order to really bring the company that you're working for, that you're participating in, forward towards this pathway. So I can see that the lack of data, and you can see as well, it's a major blocker. Struggles to set up processes around the data. This is a lot what we've worked on: data gap analysis, understanding if your data is good enough, replacing also sometimes the data with national averages. That is also something that is needed and that the company provides, that the platform provides, allowing you, in other words, to fill in the blank rather than start from a blank slate, which is often a little bit more daunting. So I would like to come back to the main topic at hand of today. And so I really apologize for the screen sharing. I don't know where it's cutting, but I'll go back here. And now for the content that you've been waiting for, meeting the authors of this report. They will share with you the key findings of the work that they have done. And they will give you a deeper perspective on how this handbook can become actionable for you already today and starting and continuing on tomorrow. So I would love to welcome Cesar and Prerna on stage to really introduce to us what have you been up to, what can we learn from this manual, and how can is the audience actually use it?
Thank you, Nathan. Can you please move to the next slide? Yep. So I think that it is a good for starting and explaining a little bit why is the what was the primary actually of creating such a piece of information, and what is the value that we're trying to offer also to our audience by making this process of creation of this manual, and also presenting it to our clients and to our broader audience. So the first thing that we have seen in the market, and even considering, for example, the examples of our clients that were presented in one slide before, that most of our clients have either their products and services based on software, or they require for operating their businesses a lot of these services coming from suppliers, from specifically services that are cloud computing, for example, or the management of data in data centers. And while the market is moving from owning these data centers that are operated by the companies themselves, but moving to supplier provision of these services, where it is moving or shifting the emissions from scope 1 and scope 2 to scope 3, but they are still very relevant. In fact, as you can see, and this is part of the manual, this graphic that it is in the left side, if we compare how have the emissions grown between 2010 to 2020, data centers and the smartphones are the two components, let's say, of the ICT sector that have grown the most. And it's actually because of these changes in the business models of our clients that are actually most of us their services and products, as I said, are operating to these intelligent devices like smartphones, and with a lot of data um, coming or creating these network interconnections with data centers. The manual that we are going to present now and that will be available for all of you is basically a compendium of different a range of sources, the most updated and credible ones, like for example, scientific papers, technology trends and outlooks, scenario projections, but also methodologies and standards, because we were trying to collect the most impactful and useful information to create or to identify what are the most actionable decarbonization actions and measures according to what is the industry actually pointing towards. Generally speaking, we have used around 50 different sources to create these insights. And behind this piece of work, it is the addition of almost 120 hours of research work of the sustainability solutions team, and particularly the decarbonization team, apart from what it is in review, design, and publication. So it is just the identification, processing, and putting all these pieces together in something that can provide a lot of value, as I said, for our audience, but also for the following process that I would like also to explain a little bit to you. So Nathan, you can go to the next one, please. Yeah. So also the idea behind creating this is not, or in addition to provide these insights to you, is because, as I was saying before, it is also very relevant for us to understand what is this industry doing, what are the technology trends, and what are the measures or actions that we can operationalize to reduce emissions. So we collect all these elements and we create this document, this manual for you. But internally, we also are using this to use this as insights that will enable them to create the calculation methods that will be used for calculating the emissions, but also for modeling the decarbonization actions, as you have seen a little bit in the demo presentation. But additionally, with this information, we can let's say, improve the services that we offer to our clients, like, for example, including consultancy services that we provide along with the platform, and also producing this called industry action cards. So the measures or the actions and technology trends that specific at the level of industry that we implemented into the platform. That's why we call it action cards. That's the name that we use for them. And finally, to create or to enable this possibility of a scenario modeling for decarbonization, so that you can play with it and do this exercise that we call it active decarbonization using the platform and the insights that are integrated into the platform. So that's the idea, that we, together with the manual, have also a powerful system through the Plan A platform that you can use for operationalizing this. And going to the findings. So the first finding is, as I was saying, the market is actually moving to from this business model in what the data centers were all operated by the companies themselves, but now it is by big suppliers. And because of the increases of this business model, but actually also with the coming of the artificial intelligence, the current share of global GHG emissions has moved around from around 2 to 4%, and it is expected to grow until 14% according to the growth trends of the market. This is already comparable to the aviation industry, so it is actually very important, very relevant in the whole global economy, and it will be even more if we actually do not or simply allow for the emissions to grow according to the trend. And as I was saying also before, potentially we can have this idea that the software companies on the basically all the services and products that are based on software and IT are actually clean because they are not physically or visually associated to emissions, but in fact the huge amount of energy that it is consumed by providing these services, it is attached to this big amount of emissions that are produced on a daily basis. You can have or find also additional pieces of information that show, for example, the increasing usage of AI, and also what is the vast amount of energy that is required for that. So we need to put attention into this in order to create or to decarbonize the services. The second point is exactly this, that before we could believe that this is very opaque or ambiguous, that the scarcity of data, it is very problematic, but in fact there are ways in which we can estimate the emissions and therefore how we can also decarbonize. And it is, for example, that we can make use of the scope 3 emissions from digital services that now can be estimated using different tools that are available, but also we have guidances and even also gathering supplier specific information, for example, coming from very known providers as the ones that are mentioned here, but also we can have now access to specific emission factors from the third-party providers that are allowing us a lot of more clarity on how to calculate these emissions. And the big point here that we have found, as I was mentioning before, now with the coming and entering of artificial intelligence, basically in a pervasive manner in all of products and services, this is becoming a very important part of the share of the ICT associated emissions that each company will have to deal with. In spite of being also AI a potential boost or a tool that we can use for decarbonization and gaining more efficiency, but we have also to keep this in mind to have a proper decarbonization. Yeah, this four starts is about the findings, and now Prerna will continue telling you about some specific decarbonization measures.
Thanks, Cesar. Since you have outlined the broader picture of the ICT emissions and the research that went into this paper to guide the decarbonization of the IT industry, the next step is to now emphasize on how software companies, like the ones in the audience, can benefit from this research. So, if you are a software company building or running a SaaS product, you might be wondering, why should a manual focused on emissions from cloud computing and infrastructure as a service matter to us? The answer is simple: because your software runs on infrastructure, unless you have your own data centers, which is mostly not the case. So, whether you are hosting APIs, managing customer data, or training machine learning models, it's all working on rented infrastructure, such as virtual machines, which are provisioned through cloud providers like Amazon, Azure, or Google Cloud. And this infrastructure has a huge carbon cost. So your code might be generating more carbon than your commute itself. So to summarize, infrastructure as a service is like renting a powerful computer in someone else's warehouse, to simplify, which is what most of the software companies are doing nowadays. So if you are a company choosing cloud service providers, instance types, deciding when and where workloads should run, and or just simply scaling up services, this manual is made for you. Even though these are all operational decisions, they are also environmental decisions at the same time, because every compute cycle consumes vast amount of energy and carries an emission footprint. There is also a common myth that, and a lot of people assume that cloud means efficiency and hence carbon neutrality, but efficiency is not automatically equal to carbon neutrality. You have to make these decisions, and without deliberate management, cloud workloads can be surprisingly energy intensive. And in IaaS environments, the optimization burden is on you, the companies who are purchasing these services, and you're basically the customers of these cloud service providers, which is why this manual is focusing on infrastructure as a service specifically. Moving on to the next slide, let's do a little deep dive into the manual. So this manual maps out all the key decarbonization actions for software companies, categorized into development and production versus usage phase, all in one place. I will be discussing some of the practical applications of these actions. And on the right side, you can see a graph which is straight out of the manual, and you can see all the actions mapped here for your software decarbonization journey. We will not talk about all the actions today, but we will briefly touch upon some of the actions. And moving on to the next slide, let's start with resource optimization. One way of doing so is by auto scaling. So auto scaling is basically the process where your infrastructure automatically adjusts the amount of computing resources based on the current demand. So let's imagine a busy website that gets a huge spike in traffic during certain hours, but is nearly sitting idle at others. With auto scaling, your cloud environment spins up additional resources only when you need them. So this eventually reduces unnecessary energy used from your cloud. And the next action is right sizing. So often companies provision servers larger than they actually need just to be safe, but over provisioning wastes resources and consume more energy. So right sizing basically involves analyzing your workloads and adjusting instance sizes to better match actual needs. Just to give a little example here, if you have an application that only requires medium capacity, so running it on a large instance is inefficient and also carbon intensive at the same time. So right sizing can help you choose the right instance based on your workload and your software demand. And another key action is high server utilization. So the goal here of this action is to maximize how much work a server does relative to its capacity. And you can do so through techniques like containerization. Most famous containers are Kubernetes, which are widely used by a lot of SaaS companies. Moving on to the next slide, next important action is carbon aware computing. So what does that mean? Data centers around the world, they don't all use energy with the same carbon footprint. For example, if you run your workloads in a region which is powered mostly by renewable energy, like wind or solar, that can drastically reduce your carbon emissions compared to running the same workload somewhere else, which is heavily reliant on coal or natural gas. So this gets a bit tricky since not all cloud providers, which Cesar also briefly touched upon, they do not disclose their location-based emissions for Scope 2, but knowing this data is where you step in. And this concept is called basically carbon aware computing. And if you're a software company, you can get this data from your cloud service provider, or this data is also publicly available. So to implement the so-called regional shifting, you need specific data on carbon intensity in different locations. And luckily, there are some fantastic tools available for the same, such as, just to quote some of the sources, such as electricity maps, watt time, and energy charts. These tools can help you visualize energy production and consumption trends, giving insights into when renewable energy peaks in specific countries and specific locations. So just to end on a final note, I hope that this manual helps you plan your decarbonization journey in a strategic and technical manner. And I will now hand it over back to Nathan.
Thank you so much for this perspective, Perna, and for the different tangible actions that we were able to find or that you were able to identify. I want to maybe tie it off before we move on to the Q&A by reminding everyone that this is a work in progress. We have been working in the field. Planet was founded in 2017, and as was pointed out in this part of the presentation, the data landscape has evolved a lot. The ways that we consume and emit emissions, carbon emissions, has dramatically changed from an infrastructure perspective, from an end user perspective, from an operational and process perspective. So there are lots of um, action spaces that exist within the software and IT world for decarbonization, and a lot of it is yet to be invented and scaled. So we can recommend these actions, and we would love to hear you implement them. Be it through a direct message or reading it through the press when you announce it. We would love to see that and to see how this is also influencing, your decarbonization journey. So thank you to all of the presenters, and thank you to the audience for listening in. I want to move on to the question and answer because I know we've received a couple already. Um, and so feel free to use the chat, please, to just pile them up. If you have some interesting points, interesting questions or comments, I would love to read them, and we would love to read them. So maybe the first one that I'm seeing on one of our live events is, how do you actually measure the reduction potential of the actions that we are proposing, that we're suggesting? I'm curious to hear the perspective on the methodologies that allow you to say that it has a good potential. So I think I know who's going to answer some of these questions, but here we go with the first one. Not the easiest.
Yeah, maybe I can cover that part as we covered it in the product demo. Yeah, so the reduction potential that we shared there uses a few different approaches. Keep in mind, this is when you have historical, what we refer to as business activity data in the system itself. So the system knows your historical emissions. And there's a few different ways of approaching the reduction potential of a single action. Right now, for a kind of quick high-level view, we can look at the historical emissions of a single category or combination of categories, depending on the action that you're working on. So we can look at just overall kind of percent reduction of historical emissions, focusing on individual categories or combination of categories. And if you're interested in this topic, actually something we're doing a bit of a deeper dive on. I know Nathan's going to be previewing our next webinar upcoming in a few weeks. We're going to do a bit of a deeper dive on some of the decarbonization methods and new tools also that we'll have outlining, where it's not just the kind of reduction potential that's shown to you, but you also get to play around with some of the levers and variables that go into that.
Thank you so much, Nick, for this perspective. Maybe it's a perfect plug-in, isn't it, to announce that we will be doing a webinar Wednesday in 2 weeks on the 18th with my dear colleagues from the product team to really show you, as Nick said, the new tools. We all know in this space that tools are popping up, obviously AI-powered, LLM-powered, but not only. And at Planet, we're really trying to leverage all of the opportunities that make sense for our customers and to integrate them to our product that you have seen. So this is, as I said, a work in progress. We ship very frequently updates of the platform. And I hope that this answers the question around what are the methodologies for the emissions reduction potential, and indeed, how can a user play with the different things that hide behind this reduction potential. Thank you so much, Nick. I have a second one that maybe relates a little bit. Are there also ways to reduce costs when reducing IT emissions? So what is the relationship between decarbonization and cost reduction? how do you build the case for investing in this area? This area, I understand decarbonization. So I don't know if Nick again or Cesar or Prana you want to take. I'm sure we all have a take on this.
Yeah, I can take this one. Yes, decarbonization is several times closely related also to the possibilities of reducing costs. Why? Because normally the emissions are associated also with inefficiency, right? Like for example, high or yeah, a high consumption of energy, for example, in different forms, but just related to this example, to the software and IT industry. So, for example, these measures that Brenna has been presenting, like for example, ride scaling or auto scaling, for example, is a way in which we can reduce actually the usage of the data center services, reducing the data transfer, therefore reducing also the energy consumption and therefore reducing the emissions. While at the same time, we know that these business models or a different type of contracts also allow the user to um, gain advantages in the cost of the contracts with their suppliers. So these measures, in fact, as I said, are associated with cost reductions because of the inefficiencies that are behind. We are actually also working on developing this kind of insights, financial insights together with the decarbonization models. Probably, Nick, it is more, yeah, you can talk about these future developments in the platform.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to add on to what you said, Cesar. Like I can kind of speak from our own experience overseeing like the engineering teams. This is a really great opportunity where the sustainability oriented pathway aligns really well with the cost oriented pathway because it's about efficiency. It's about efficiency in the code base, about efficient use of compute resources, and that kind of builds the case. So you're an engineering team, you can kind of start with the financial use case around reducing the costs associated with, be it AWS, Google Cloud, etc., and then kind of add the bonus of, and we're also going to reduce our carbon emissions as a result, because often when it comes to infrastructure as a service, these things are going hand in hand. And yeah, indeed, there are some upcoming tools. So again, I'll just plug the webinar that's coming up, where we go into a bit of a deeper dive about how you can kind of model these things and help build the business case for decarbonization with really specific data around what your future emissions might look like, but also what your future costs might look like as well.
Thank you so much both for this thorough answer. I'm going to group two questions just in the interest of time because we do have a lot of question marks here. The first one is, can you explain again how your solution helps measuring emissions? Is it all of the carbon scopes? I'm going to tie it up with this one. And can you share after that how the Plan A platform helps operationalize the manual? So I think we've touched on that, but maybe more tangibly, how do we go from this manual to actual reduction for the clients?
Yeah, I can maybe start with the overview there, and Cesar, maybe feel free to add on how we kind of tackle the decarbonization front a little bit as you're working very closely with some of our clients. So yes, just to answer the first question, the platform supports calculation methods across all the greenhouse gas protocol scopes and methods and categories. In addition to that, as I kind of quickly went through, the platform supports mixed method approaches. So we have multiple approaches to calculating emissions for the same category. So depending on what data you have, we'll likely be able to support the calculation method based on your data availability. Sometimes you might want to start with the most accurate method possible, but you simply don't have the data, or it's too time intensive to collect the data. You can start with whatever data you have today in order to get going on your sustainability journey. And in addition to that, the platform also supports bringing your own emission factors and bringing your own emissions as well. So if you're working with a consultant or you have some really niche product carbon footprint data that you want to incorporate, that's possible too. And yeah, the platform's calculating all that emissions, helping you analyze those emissions, and then does does the work of outlining where you have some opportunities on the decarbonization side, and then you can take it a step further. So maybe Cesar, you can kind of speak to, how clients are thinking about target setting and decarbonization planning in general.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. To complement and to starting what you last said, basically the carbonization, how we're actually doing with the platform with Plan A services is, let's say, a back engineering of the calculation method. What is the meaning of this? Is that everything starts when we transfer these knowledge databases, public available information, emission factors, and so on that we have, and we transform them into the formulas, let's call it that way, into the calculation methods specifically for the different categories or for the different industry sectors, exactly as we are doing now for the software and IT. Then after that, for modeling and for projecting the decarbonization, what we do is to understand what if will happen when reducing, for example, the business activity, that we will call it that way. So, for example, if I am going to apply this activity that it is the right scaling, so the amount of megabytes that will be the business activity will be modified, and therefore we trigger, let's say, the calculation again to see in this modified scenario what will be now the emissions in order to compare with the original, and we will see the difference. In that way, we will project the decarbonization and we create the decarbonization scenarios. And finally, we match that with the desired decarbonization targets, right? Either if it is open targets that our clients have decided to go with, or science-based targets, for example, with their specific rules. And as I said, we do this through the platform because we have the capabilities there, but additionally, we will require more and more specific details, or we can also support with some consultancy services, but in the end, the idea is still the same. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Cesar and Nick, again, for a great perspective. I'm going to share two more questions because we are running out of time. I think this one might be for you, Prana. I'm not sure if I totally trust the figures coming from my cloud service provider. They appear to be missing details I would expect to see, like markets-based figures, leaving out scope 3, many things missing. Where can I look for emission factors that might be easier to trust or understand? And then I will state the last question of this session.
Yeah, to answer this question, so there are various types of emission factors, first of all. So there are grid-based emission factors, which Chris, you can find in sources like electricity maps. But if you're looking for emission factors like per compute or per storage level of power consumption, then that data is usually not shared by the cloud service providers, and that's where a Plan A puts a lot of work in to collect these emission factors for each compute and each storage level. And but if you're looking specifically for scope 3 data, which is not disclosed mostly by cloud service providers in their sustainability reports, I would say there are some public sources that compare these scope 3 emissions of the biggest cloud service providers, but I'm not sure if you can find it in the sustainability reports of these providers, though. But I hope I answered your question to some extent.
Nathan, your mic is off.
Yes. Apologies. Just one last one, because there's so many. So we will focus on the topic at hand, and please follow up with us, follow up with me or anyone in the team with your questions. We're always happy to, discuss, talk about your problems with decarbonization, talk about solutions of decarbonization. So Tommaso asks, as I understand, cloud emissions fall under scope 3 for IT companies. Is it sufficient just to report emissions calculated from the cloud service provider? AWS is a kind of carbon calculator tool, which we don't like, which reports the emissions of your workloads in MTCO2E. But as Chris pointed out, their reports don't seem very accurate. So maybe can we add a little bit of detail here?
Yeah, this is a very good question. And in fact, in our last webinar also, we suggested our audience not to be completely reliant on self-reported information from, especially from these big companies, because first of the lack of clarity on what are the methodologies behind to disclose this information. Additionally, normally they don't know, it is not completely clear if they are considering all the categories behind it, and what are the potentially assumptions that they are using, their own emission factors and so on. So everything like it is like put it together in order to provide this close information. So that's why we need to be careful. And in fact, we in the carbon accounting world have a saying that more specificity does not necessarily lead to more accuracy, right? So this is the balance, let's say, in this natural feeling that is saying if I collect data specifically from my supplier, probably will highly increase accuracy. In some cases, this is not true. In some cases, this can be a very good solution, but in some cases, this is not exactly true. Additionally, together with this, that's why also Brenda was presenting these tools that, for example, the energy maps and so on, that they are more reliable in the sense that they provide information based on the emission factors of the energy grids in which these data centers are located. So this is also, there are other tools that can be used by you in order to get more actionable data and information. But in the end, I would say that also that's why companies like Plan A exist, because we have collected a lot of information, emission factors, and so on, all to put it together so you can have reliable calculations on the emissions, but also on the decarbonization side. So that because in fact this requires a lot of understanding and processing of different data sources to go exactly to those to get those calculations. Mhm.
Thank you so much, Cesar. I will have to close the studio because we're running out of time. This is the end of this session. Um, I want to just take the opportunity to mention one of the question that I think is important and a very beautiful way to also close and open, close this chapter and open the next one. What roles and influence does venture capital funds have in driving tech company? And do VCs truly push tech companies to prioritize climate action and decarbonization? This is something that, as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, I've been involved with a lot in the company of Planet. We have investors that are VCs, and we have to report to them. And we also work with them and their sustainability manager and ESG managers to help them decarbonize their own portfolio. So this is a really interesting dynamic that we are observing where financial institutions, and we have a lot of content on financial institution decarbonization, are at the heart of the machine that forces or pushes or encourages other companies to transform themselves. So this is true for regular accounting, where companies all have to do accounting in a very specific way. This is also coming to become true and truer every year with non-financial accounting, which carbon management is part from. So I am a strong believer that investors at large, not just VCs, are a driver of the transformation of our economies. Do we need, I think, a more maybe unified approach from one country to another, or even from a VC or a private equity to another? And that would really speed up this transformation and give a a North Star objective for us to go towards together. But I do believe that they are a strong force towards transformation of the business. You are also a force of transformation for your business and beyond your business. At Plan A, this is also what we set out to do. As I say, since 2017, is not just to transform one business, but to really transform the fabric of the economy into a decarbonized one. In other words, decoupling the growth, the economic growth that your company or the economy might enjoy, and the carbon that is necessary to reach that growth. So that is really the bedrock of our thinking and the enablement work that we do, whether it's upskilling or technical platform or accompaniment of clients more personally. All of these actions are designed to create the conditions in which decarbonization become very cheap, very interesting, and the return on investment becomes even better. To learn more about this, expect a great email in your inbox with the full resource that we have presented, with the recording of this live as well. and with a registration link to our next webinar, which I really can only encourage you to join. We will be discussing a lot of different new features that we're introducing, a lot of different ways to treat your carbon management, to speed it up, and to actually cut your time to action, your time to reports, so that you as a sustainability manager can spend some time on the reducing the carbon or avoiding the carbon emissions of your company. Thank you so much to all. Have a great rest of the day and expect some news in your inbox from Plan A in the coming minutes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, the speaker, and thank you to the audience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.